Hello, and welcome back to Profit Grow Exit, the podcast where we dive into the real stories behind building, scaling, and eventually exiting business in the MSP and IT services space. I'm your host, Abi Walsh, and today's episode is a really interesting one because we're talking about something that most businesses don't necessarily think about until it's already a problem: how your technology actually fits your business. Joining me today is Trevor Bollers, president of Letter B Global Technologies. Trevor has a pretty unique background and an even more unique approach to software development for your business. So let's go ahead and get into it. Trevor, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Yes, hey, thanks, Abby, for having me. Glad to be here. Glad to share insights. This is fun stuff for me.
Yes, it's always so much fun to learn everybody's stories. And speaking of stories, you had one of the most interesting fun facts when we spoke earlier, where you went from possibly the most interesting career to building a software company. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, growing up, I was a very active athlete and stuff, and I was able to get a scholarship to the University of Iowa as a football player. Played for Hayden Fry, genius of a man, and from that, I was able to get an opportunity out of starting 8 games as a senior to go to the NFL, and that time was amazing because everybody around you in the locker room was a freak athlete in one way or another, right? An expert at what they did. But of course, what they did isn't your regular business world stuff. Being an expert at what they did meant putting somebody on the ground because they're blocking them, or literally in a blink of an eye disappearing. Even though you think you're going to tackle them, they don't exist anymore, right? And so I
That
saw amazing human beings do amazing things.
that is so cool. And so tell me a little bit about that transition and how you got into the technology space.
Well, so for me, technology has always been a passion since I was put in front of a PC Pet in second grade and an Apple IIe, right? I could not get enough of them. They showed me how to like work different programs, and then my teacher really understood my passion for it, and so he allowed me to be in the computer lab more, and allowed me, and even took me to business shows because I could use some of the business software of the time, a random program for marketing stuff called Fantavision, right? I actually still can look it up, but all throughout my life, I've been very tech connected, and so they're like, you're the biggest hard headed football playing geek I've ever met, is what I normally get from people. And so then translate that into coming out of football and my career ending. I was able to join Logistics Services International, and with a MIS bachelor from Iowa. I got 2 degrees at Iowa, marketing and information systems, right? So when they put me when they gave me access to the ITC with a whole bunch of computers in it, everybody else was busy doing other things. I was there working on the computers and building websites way back in the 90s when, it was a big deal to put a border around a box. So that
Yeah.
tech uh that tech journey's been really cool.
That is amazing, and I just think that that's such a fun fact. Who gets that icebreaker, right?
Right.
Now,
Right.
sports obviously teach us all so many things. I have never gotten the opportunity to play an elite level sport, but what did playing football at that level or any level teach you about leadership and teamwork that you still apply today?
So one critical lesson I learned, actually, and this was at Iowa, was resilience. There's going to be a million challenges that you're going to face on a day to day basis, right? And one of my biggest challenges was learning the US game versus learning the Canadian game, which I had grown up playing. The US game was different, and I got into a little bit of trouble right away because I started going in motion towards the line. Translate that into a few years later. right? I was trying to get playing time and it wasn't coming. There was somebody ahead of me, and it would have been easy to quit. Just like when you're not getting the sales, when you're not able to react as fast to the technology, or something doesn't go your way in business, it would be easy to say, I'm packing up and quitting, right? But it's but the resilience you learn from sport, right? To keep on going. That's what landed me in the NFL in the first place because I stayed. And then I finally got my chance to start. And then when I got my chance to start in the few games, I put enough film on tape there to say, this guy is a guy that we want to look at. This guy is a guy that we think can play. It doesn't
That
take
is
a
so
lot.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's pretty amazing. There's not many people that get to say that they stepped onto an NFL field. So, now that kind of leads me into my next question, which is that you actually started your business in 2008, right at the beginning of an economic downturn. So, what made you take that risk, and how did that kind of play into that?
We felt that if things were at this point, right, there's nowhere to go but up. And so looking at where the economy was in '08, we said if we're able to um, build the business, develop enough customers to survive, we should be able to effectively grow the business as things turn around. And that's exactly what happened, right? As the turnarounds happened and the economy then like recovered, our business was able to grow and thrive through those times.
Yeah, and that really feeds into what you were saying about resilience as well. Now, tell me a little bit about your company and what you do when somebody calls you up. What does that interaction look like for the first time?
Normally, when somebody calls us up, we're going to start learning. And throughout our entire interaction, we don't stop learning. As a business, right? As a team of people who develop software, we've seen enough bad software implementations where people say we spent a year trying to do this and we got nothing out of it, or we had to revert back, or we spent this amount of time trying to get this product to turn into who we are, but the product wouldn't turn into who we are, or to turn us into who the product is. And our team gave us a lot of pushback on that. So the first thing we're going to do is ask you about you, right? Ask you about not just what software you're using, because really that doesn't matter. What matters is who you are, what your culture is, and what the challenges are that you face today. Because we'd like to one of our things that we do with our customers is we say, okay, don't tell us about your software package, tell us about your spreadsheets, because that's where the work really gets done,
That's
right?
true. That's very true.
And so that's one of the things we ask for. We ask for your spreadsheets because that's going to tell us what data where's the gap between
Right.
your system and what you actually need to do, right? Because the spreadsheets cover the gap.
Yeah,
And so
absolutely.
that's what an intro to us normally looks like.
Awesome. And now you, as a company, sit in kind of a unique position that's between offshore and onshore. Can you explain that a little bit? How you would explain that to a client?
Normally we explain that to our client in that like we are global in nature, and so we have our team, and even when we work with our Canadian clients or our clients down in New Zealand, we try and do a lot of the design and process work with our onshore team, and then we will then offset some of that with our development team that's offshore. And so then what you get is a capability where we can provide support even 24 hours because some of our offshore team is available and would be on Teams or there to get the support message of the evening need. And that's happened several times where we deploy after hours literally because it works directly into the schedule. So it
Right.
gives us a lot of flexibility to work with our onshore developers and then tag team that with our offshore developers as far as timing, as far as support, as far as, just development in general.
Yeah. And where do you think that most MSPs get it wrong when they think about outsourcing development?
I think most NSPs get it wrong when they say, "Hey, we want to do the analysis and control the client." Our goal is not to take the client. Our goal is to enhance your role with the client and the vision of you with the client. Whether you want us to be white boxed, right, and act as you, or come in as a trusted partner. Right now, you're already a trusted partner of the customer that you have, right? Let them trust you even more by introducing you to somebody that's going to actually effectively get their work done. And that's where I think that gets messed up.
Yeah. Now, you talk a lot about cultural design in software. What does that
hmm
mean?
So, cultural design means applying your software, right? Our tag is you're great at what you do. Your software should also be great at what you do, right? And so, if your driver still hand writes the ticket and doesn't use your software to enter it, is because they don't see the value. You can't convince them or whatever. Or if you have the 6 spreadsheets that actually tell you what the business is doing, you're not getting that out of your software because your culture doesn't work that way. The software works that way. And it's like, yeah, that's the software, but we work this way.
Hmm.
What we want is what we got the other day. We actually got one of the best compliments ever.
Okay,
My
tell us.
customer, right? She goes, he loves using the software because it works the way his brain works.
That's a really good point. That's when you're doing
That's
something custom, it can work for you versus you working for it.
exactly. And that's what we look for. That's the cultural design. How does your culture work? Who does these jobs and who shares this information? Why does that information get shared between them? How can we more effectively share that information between them so that now we reduce double entry? He doesn't have to write it on something and then he doesn't have to go and write into something else then to just show up in the office and get written again, you
Mhm.
know?
Oh, I understand that completely. It's I've seen that more than once and with
Yeah.
myself.
Yes. Yes.
Um, why do you think that most software implementations fail from that cultural standpoint?
I'll give you a recent example. A plastics molder, right? They were trying to take their old software, bring it up to a new version of the software. But in that new version were things that they, one, didn't need, two, didn't understand, and three, had a huge learning curve to try and figure out. If the software is connected to your brains, the brains in your company, the people who make the things happen day to day, then they know where to look because the button says what they expect it to say, right? The report generates the things they expect it to see because that's what comes out of their spreadsheet.
Right, right. No, so truly what you guys are doing is making soft the software adapt to the business and not the business adapt to the software.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic. And now
Because,
you Oh, go ahead.
well, I was just going to say, because the business, like in any business, you're going to have people who have been long standing there. They're looking to be effective, right? And they want to do well for the business, right? But this is going to cause them to have to learn 5 new skills and may slow down their.
Yeah, that's true. That's true with any new software implementation. There is a hump. Now, you guys have chosen to work very closely with MSPs. So tell me a little bit about what made that choice.
The primary goal for us is we understand that MSPs have a great relationship with their customers, a trust-based relationship that says we're going to take care of you and we're going to take care of your computers, we're going to take care of your processes, we're going to take care of your security. The one area where a lot of them fall short is there's not enough software development projects to warrant a software development team.
Right.
And so where we come in is we bridge that gap where we know how your customers work, we know who your customers are with you and all. And then when you bring a project, we work with the MSP to implement. And so now you're not like trying to work with somebody outside of you per se and outside of the company because we want to like connect partner wise with you to deliver. And that's our primary goal is we want to make sure that we deliver. And our MSP partners right now have found that we deliver and that's why they work with us.
Okay, and that might be the answer to this next question, but I'm going to ask it anyway just in case there's another side note because you're kind of entering someone else's client relationship through the MSP. How do you build trust with and fast really with the MSP and the client?
Um, we normally do a show and tell, but primarily we'll say, listen, the engagement can be small. We're not asking you to trust us with your giant client, and we'll respond when you ask us to give you an idea of how something could work, right? We want to be there in the partner relationship. So if somebody comes to you and you're walking in, MSPs walk through the building, they get the phone call, this isn't working. They hear oh my God, if this software could just work. They hear all of those things, right? So now here's their opportunity to be the problem solver or be part of the solution. And they say, well, we know these people that actually can help you either reconfigure, integrate, connect, or build something that collects all of that for you. Right. And generally they start small. Hey, let's just have a conversation with them. And that's how we build trust with our MSP.
Awesome. And now, the last time that you and I spoke, you had talked about how your biggest challenge right now is that people don't know that you exist. So, how are you guys going about tackling that?
We're working on a lot more outreach. I'm trying to get out there. One of the ways, of course, is talking to you, where you have people who know who you are and understand that there's value in the people that you bring on your podcast. And we're trying to show uh, that we are human. We attend different functions and share as much insight as we can, so that when you engage with us, it's not about a sales. It's not about a sales pitch. It's about developing, as you said, trust in that we know what we're talking about, we can deliver, and we're going to take care of your customer.
Yeah, absolutely. And trust is just so big in this space because you're dealing with such y- uh unique issues that take so much time to build up those relationships and then, bringing someone in. What has been your favorite lead gen tool that you guys have used so far in the MSP and technology space?
So far, actually, our favorite lead gen tool is growing to be HubSpot. Our HubSpot is actually growing we've grown it and grown ourselves into using more and more of its capabilities, right? But that's also come from our physical outreach and our physical connection that we've gone out and working with groups like Cirrus and different MEPs to be at events and be present. Like next week, I'm presenting at the Ivy Sales Summit on AI, right? I'll be in part of the panel, and that's at Iowa State University, right? And is a Cirrus event. And so then from there, then we'll make all those connections or track the connections we get through our HubSpot, and that way, then we can see our engagement and follow up.
Is fantastic. And that actually leads me into my next series of questions, which is getting on that
Okay.
buzzword AI.
Oh,
So
yeah. Yeah.
you guys have been working in a lot of AI related concepts and long before it was a buzzword. So tell me, what are people getting wrong right now about AI, and what are people getting right maybe too?
So people, there's two things that they're getting wrong. They think they have to go and do like Google and type into the AI a query, and it's going to spit back to you a bunch of websites or some stuff. right? And they think it's a search engine. When if they flipped it over and said, okay, what this thing generates stuff, right? This is an example I gave today. Somebody was trying to figure out how to create a policy. And I said, well, why don't you just ask the AI to give you a policy framework? And they're like, you can do that? I'm like, well, yeah, it's not going to give you the legal full everything else like that, but it can give you all the points of a policy. So you don't have to sit there and go, what is in a policy?
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
And
and
then,
search through those websites too.
yeah, the other thing is they think that AI hovers around their world, right? They think, okay, hey, I have my custom chat GPT, so now I'm using AI to my ability. And it's like a hovering AI is still kind of just like a kind of like a search engine. It can only tell you about things external to you,
Mhm.
right? That's where like connecting your AI to your actually work world, right? Whether you're using a Copilot agent or something that's connected into your network, because your Copilot can see your network if you like buy the version, like stop using the free version and just actually integrate it. It can also you can also integrate. There's like AI tools in, like, for example, our HubSpot that can give me a summary of how the relationship is going and what the communication has been. So I'm not sitting there trying to scroll through every email. But we also build tools that filter in and provide AI assistance directly inside of your software. And
Mhm.
that's where that actual generative capability comes in, because then you can ask it for the latest report. Because you know why? Ask me why you can ask it for the report.
I was gonna say, okay, why? Tell me why.
Because the AI has access to the data. Because you
Yeah.
put the data in the system. And the AI, if it's hovering around your world, doesn't have access to the data. So it can't say, hey, last week we gained 5 new clients by doing this process, right? But if the AI has access to your data, right, then it can say, last week we needed to purchase 3 times as much of this product because of these factors happening. Should we make a note for next year?
Mhm. Now, are you what kind of cybersecurity issues come up from giving the AI, access, or what do companies need to be aware of on that end?
So some of the cybersecurity issues that you'll have to figure out is like the AI contract and whether you're actually integrating the system into your network. And that's where you can actually look up your Copilot and the contract that you get from the paid Microsoft AI tools or the paid Microsoft OpenAI tools that are actually you can actually build into your system using your API keys. Those actually have different rules than your regular public Gemini or ChatGPT, right?
Okay.
And if there's one thing that people always wonder is, hey, if I upload a file, where does it go?
True. Well, that's yeah, I mean, it's kinda like when the cloud started becoming a thing and, like,
Hmm.
everyone's like, "It's in the cloud, but where is it?"
But where is it? And with your Copilot, it's in your OneDrive, because inside of your 365 ecosystem, they want you to use your OneDrive anyway because it allows them to charge you for space, right? So if you go and upload a nice file, they're going to put it in your OneDrive
I
and
did
all.
notice that when we were using, the Microsoft one, with the OneDrive, it would always pull documents from that, so that makes
Hmm.
sense,
Yeah.
and then
And
that's where it would
so,
get a lot of its information.
yep. For the others, it's varied spaces. For the public ones, you don't know. And so that's
Right,
why I always say, like, get control over
right.
a paid version and then know where
Pay the
it's loading the
subscription.
files. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, well, at least then, yeah, you know where it is and where it's going to some degree. So looking at AI, 5 years ago, I don't think we would have been having this conversation. So if you could look into the future 5 years, what do you think is something that we're doing now that we'll look back and laugh at or think is a mistake?
I think, and this affects my industry a lot. Um, the AI will be able to fix itself
Mhm,
or adjust itself. So by that time, in 5 years, we will have built systems that don't just deliver what was there before, you
mhm.
know, they will be able to notice that you have a need and then we'll fix it. Just like your book in the background says, fix this next, your AI will be able to have the list of things because it's working with you, right? And so it'll have the things to fix next.
True, true. Now, do you think that the AI, implementation is going to have any effect on, like, the offshore work or, any workforce reduction?
I definitely think that the AI is going to have an effect on the offshore work
Mhm.
because the offshore, in a lot of cases, what people use offshore work for is to have people that can take instruction and then execute. Okay. That's what AI does. It takes instruction, then it executes. And
Very
so
true.
if you don't have to do that with other people, you can do it with the AI. Now the value comes really from the neck up
Mhm.
for a lot of development and a lot of offshore work because it's not physical. It's not a physical person in a chair. It's I need to be able to think about the problem for the customer and then execute.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think that's probably the best explanation that I've heard in a while on that.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
for MSP owners or business owners in general who are listening right now, what is one message that you want them to walk away with after hearing this podcast?
The message that I think is going to be important is that data entry does not have to be the barrier anymore. You can speak it into existence. You can work with the system to be context aware of what you're doing and what the actual data is that you have so that then you can automate it to do the next step. You can also then have that list and something reminding you of what it is to fix next, you know. So don't just use the current capabilities as like a search engine or have it hovering around you, right? Um, ask us. We'll tell you what the complexities of your industry are and do the research and help you out, and then you can get going to being more effective.
That is awesome. And this, Trevor, this has been such a great conversation. And I think one of my biggest takeaways is that businesses spend so much time trying to fit themselves into tools when in reality, you can make the tools support what already makes them successful. So please, do you want to go ahead and like let us know where we can find you if anybody has any other questions or this, strikes a chord for themselves or a client?
Absolutely. So they can reach out to me on LinkedIn at Trevor Bollers, right? Or they can find us at Letter B Global Technologies, or you can check out our website at letterbllc.com. And you can also then shoot me an email, tbowlers at letterbglobal.com.
Perfect. And we will link your website in the video notes as well. So thank you so much for joining me. This has been an awesome conversation. And I think there's some really good messages here for MSP owners and business owners.
Well, one day, hopefully, I get a chance to do a show and tell with you, so we can make a recipe
Yeah.
because you can speak your recipe into existence.
Yeah, that's true. That's you can help me with my CRM.
There you go. That'd be fun. There you go.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for the time.